From a young age, we're taught that if something looks too good to be true, well, it usually is. And I think for people looking at buying a Dacia Jogger, a few people are wary. Is it really as good as everyone says it is? Well, hopefully I'm going to be able to answer that in today's video. Hi guys, I'm Tish and welcome back to my channel, Auto Social UK. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Dacia Jogger. This one I have here is actually the brand new hybrid 140 engine. So we're going to find out whether it's worth the uplift in price to go for the hybrid. If you did want to see a review of the petrol manual car, then you can click the link somewhere up there and that will take you to the John Banks review channel where I reviewed their car. But this one now has a strong hybrid engine, and that means that in a city it can drive for up to 80% of the time in electric, making it even more affordable than it already is. It all sounds very good, doesn't it? Well, we're going to find out just how good that engine is. Sometimes hybrids can be a little bit stressed under pressure, so we're going to give it a good run and see how we get on. But let's start by talking about the design of the Dacia Jogger, because recently Dacia have actually undergone a rebrand, and I think it's completely changed the feel of the whole brand. If you've seen any of their dealers recently, they're now sporting the new Dacia badge, and you also have the new branding which features feels of nature, a lot of wood effect, and it really matches well with the cars, which also have a bold new look. Now the main change to the new cars is this front of the vehicle. You've got the brand's new white Dacia logo at the front, and it's nice and big and central. They're definitely not hiding away their brand anymore. And then you have these stripes which then lead into the very nice LED headlamps. Now the headlamps are actually eco LEDs. This does concern me a little bit. If anyone has ever bought an eco bulb, they've usually regretted it. Let's face it, standard LEDs are usually better. But if there is any owners watching this who have Dacia Joggers, what are the headlamps like at night? And then on to alloy wheels. However, I do use the term alloy wheel, but these are not actually alloys, which really surprised me. If any hubcap was going to trick me, it would be these ones. So these are actually 16-inch steel wheels, but the hubcaps have been specifically designed to look like an alloy wheel, so you can't see any of the wheel behind, which I think is actually a very good idea. It means that if you're someone who doesn't always have the best driving history when it comes to curbing wheels, you can simply just pop off a plastic wheel trim and replace it with another one. And that's the thing with the Dacia Jogger. Not everything is perfect and not everything is premium. However, you do get that element of robustness. You don't really have to worry. You might not have the most premium alloy wheels, but it doesn't matter if you hit one because you can simply replace the hubcap. Very, very practical for families, and the practicality is the real highlight of this car. I don't think I've mentioned yet, but of course, it's a 7-seater, which is pretty rare nowadays. And I've just been at the launch and I found a really cool feature in the rear of the Dacia Jogger, so I'll show you that in a moment. But on the outside, it's actually a pretty good looking car. I really like it finished in this metallic paintwork. It kind of shimmers in the sun. I thought that my favourite colour was the army green or the dark grey, but I'm actually quite warming to this orange. Dacia actually quite spoil their customers because as standard, everything from the essential trim up gets roof rails as standard. These are currently vertical, but it comes with a tool, which means you can also mount them horizontally as well, making them super versatile for carrying all types of things on the roof rack, and means that customers don't have to worry about getting an aftermarket accessory, which I think is really quite generous. Dacia have done a half decent job of making the rear of this car look as good as possible. At the end of the day, they didn't have much to work with because ultimately they went for practicality. So it has a square boot and quite a high boot so that there's a ton of headroom in the rear seats. But that does mean it has quite an ugly appearance from the back. They have done their best to add these lights at the rear which kind of hug it at the hips. You've got the white Dacia badging, but something I absolutely hate is this jogger badge here. It's actually a sticker. I would have that straight off, it just cheapens it. But at the end of the day, it's not all about style with the Dacia Jogger, it's all about practicality. And here is my favourite feature of this car. With the third row erected, space in the boot of the Jogger is not particularly special. You are going to find more space in something like a Berlingo or a Space Tourer. However, it does have a handy feature. Now, you've got little bars that you press here and that drops the third row seats down, so that's really simple. However, you can also flip these seats up and that then gives you a ton of space in the boot, and it's really practical as well. There's no kind of lip that you have to get over, it is just a completely flat boot floor. But that's not the end of it. These seats actually unclip. Here's my stopwatch, and let's go. Oh, see, lock back in. That's what it was doing for me earlier. That's one. And that's two. And I did that in 44 seconds. Once inside, space is pretty good. Now you do actually sit up a little bit higher in the back, so despite it having a high roofline, you still haven't got an enormous amount of headroom. In fact, headroom in the third row is probably better than it is here in the middle. Legroom is good though. This seat is set up to my driving position, and you do have quite a lot of movement in the seats. You can have them reclined or you can have them upright, and of course these do also fold flat if you want to have a flat loading bay across the whole of the Dacia Jogger. There's one thing I really think they've missed out on when it comes to this car, and that's having 3 sets of ISOFIX child seats each way, because that's something that the market hardly offers at all. These were some top selling points of cars like the Volkswagen Chiran, and it's because you could get those 3 child seats along the back. Although, and I'll talk about this in a moment, the Jogger doesn't have the best safety rating. So I'm not sure putting 3 babies across the middle seat is something that you're going to want to do. But don't let that scare you. I'll talk about the safety systems when I take this for a drive. But in this third row, I'm really quite comfortable. Yes, okay, the windows are not the biggest, and you're always going to feel a little bit claustrophobic in the back, but I've got somewhere to pop my arm, I've got somewhere to put my drink, and I've got loads of headroom. Yeah, it's definitely one of the better third row seats that I've sat in. Also with these seats, they do actually fold down and then they fold completely upwards as well. So then that means that getting in and out is really easy as well. You're not having to kind of climb over half folded seats. Yeah, it's really practical.
The interior quality is what you'd expect, and then a little bit on top. Around the cabin you can find some scratchy hard plastics. However, the steering wheel does feature a slightly softer leather appearance, and the door cards and dashboard are trimmed in material, which does make it feel more premium than the Dacia Duster. The seats are not of the highest quality, but they are comfortable enough.
You've got a couple of cup holders, and on the new hybrid version you also get an automatic parking brake too. But practicality is exactly the same as the petrol model, and that is pretty good. You get a decent sized glove box, a little bit of storage up front, you've got that storage in the armrest, and you've got some decent sized door cards as well. There isn't any really like secret hidden spaces like they have in some vehicles, which is a bit of a shame. You haven't got a sunglasses case and things like this. But I think for most people, with the amount of storage you get in the back of this car, that shouldn't be a problem. In terms of infotainment system, this isn't something that's going to blow you away with the Jogger. It isn't the brightest or it isn't the easiest to use. It does, however, get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You've got your usual DAB radio settings, you've got Bluetooth, and I quite like that you've got a USB slot here as well, so it's quite practical for popping in your mobile phone. In fact, I've seen that on Dacias quite often they have a mobile phone cradle here, so that's why that is up here. Every version from this model, which is the Essential, you get a screen as standard, but the entry-level car does only get a phone clip, and then you can use an app. But I've had these for my Volkswagen Ups. I don't really particularly like them. I just end up using regular maps. But you do have Bluetooth on those cars as well, so you can still connect to your phone, which is good. Levels of equipment is really, really good. So you get air conditioning. These are things of the past. Dacias all come with air conditioning as standard now. You also get cruise control. I've got automatic lights, automatic rain sensing wipers. I've got a digital dash, which actually, in terms of what it looks like, the digital dashboard is better than this screen here. Of course, as I said, you get Apple CarPlay, you get Bluetooth, you also get a reverse parking camera and some quite intrusive rear parking sensors. But something about this rear camera is sometimes if you go for a cheaper car, you don't actually get the guide ropes with it. You just kind of get a rear camera and you have to guess where you're going. So to have the rear camera with the guide ropes and parking sensors, I think that's a really good benefit. It's all just very practical, and I think the name of this trim is brilliant, Essential, because that is what it is. You have everything that you essentially need.
Did I also mention that this car is keyless? I forgot about that. And actually, I've got no idea where the key is. I've not seen it. It's obviously in here somewhere. I'm not actually sure where. I mean, I hope it's in here, otherwise the car should definitely not be driving on its own. So just something to note, if I quickly turn the car completely off and then turn it back on again, the car will always start up in electric, so it's ultra quiet. So quiet. And in fact, even when you're sitting here for a while and it needs the engine to kick back in, it's not noisy as some cars, but we'll see if it gets noisier once we get out onto the road. If you've watched my videos before, I talk a lot about hybrid engines and the different types of hybrid engines, and it can get a little bit confusing. And if you're an existing viewer, switch off now because I'm going to go over the usual things. But there are three types of hybrid. So you've got a mild hybrid. This is a car which has an electric motor which helps complement the engine, but it doesn't actually drive in electric alone. You've then also got a plug-in hybrid. So these are the ones where you can do, like, I don't know, 10, 15, actually a few more than that, about 30 miles in electric range. And then you've got this car, which is a strong hybrid. Now, what a strong hybrid means is it doesn't have anything you plug in, but it does have a battery which is recharged whilst you're driving, and then that helps both complement the engine, but also it can drive for short periods of time on its own in electric. And Dacia do claim that when you're in economy mode and you're going around town, the Dacia Jogger can actually go for 80% of the time in electric, which is pretty cool. That's really going to reduce your costs. In terms of mixed driving, I've actually got some pretty good results. So this car is sitting on average 51 miles per gallon, which I think is good. It may be the fact that this car actually has a 1.6 litre petrol engine, which is complemented by the battery. And the fact that you've got a slightly bigger engine means that it doesn't have to work quite so hard, and you get a bit of a better result from it. There's a better sound as well. The petrol engine did feel a little bit struggled at times. This is much smoother. That's not to say that this doesn't have its own struggles. I mean, pop your foot down, and it does make a bit of noise, but actually it's far better than I expected. When I was talking to other journalists, they said, oh, it does make a bit of a racket when you put your foot down. And I was expecting kind of Stellantis group racket when I put my foot down, and it's not. It feels much smoother than that. So let's talk about the one negative, or the one known negative when it comes to the Dacia Jogger, and that is its safety testing.
The NCAP safety testing has been getting increasingly more difficult to pass over the years. Cars which previously scored 5 stars now would only score around 1, and that's due to tighter testing when it comes to safety systems. The Dacia Jogger does have pre-collision warning, but it misses out on things like pedestrian warning and cyclist detection. It's also lacking in much protection for the 6th and 7th seats, missing out on airbags and also seatbelt warnings. Because of the lack of these finer details, the Jogger scored just 1 star.
So despite the fact that it does get its fair share of safety systems, it's not one of the safest family cars that you can buy, and that is going to put a few people off. I'd also love to be able to say it's safer than a 5-year-old kind of 7-seater, but again, I don't really know the official answers to that, so I don't want to put my name to that. But I have to say, I don't think you should be worried too much. It has all of the real essential safety systems in it, and let's face it, if it was unsafe, people wouldn't buy it, people wouldn't want to drive it, and loads of people are driving the Dacia Jogger and they're really enjoying it.
So there you have it. Is the Dacia Jogger really as good as everyone says it is? I think yes. Yes, okay, there are some small complaints when it comes to the interior quality, not getting alloy wheels and missing out on some of the safety technology. But for the purpose of this vehicle, being affordable, being robust, and also carrying around all the family and not having to worry about spilling or damaging it, I think it's really, really good value for money. And I definitely think this hybrid engine has really elevated it over the petrol model. When I drove the petrol model, you could feel it was lacking in a little bit of power, and I'm really impressed as to how much this car has actually stuck in electric. Over time, it may be able to save you money. As I said, the numbers are pretty close. So is it really worth going for a hybrid? Well, I guess that depends if you want to do your bit for the environment. But let me know, what do you think of the Dacia Jogger? Maybe you've bought one. Let me know your comments down below. I really want to hear them. What do you think of your car? Or if you don't have one, are you thinking of buying a Jogger? Let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos from me on this channel, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, guys, see you later.